welcome to week one of Dad U. As we said in the intro, we've been really excited about this. This is something that Pastor Brad and I have been talking about for some time, and I really hope over the course of the next several weeks that this really helps you as a father. Now, I'm going to start at week one, and we're gonna talk about parenting from the bleachers. And you can see behind me, that's going to be where, as a father, you're going to spend a lot of your life, because it may be in cheer competitions or band competition, or maybe travel, baseball or volleyball, or on and on and on. So many of our kids are going to be involved in some type of activity, and that's a great thing. So I want to talk about that and how do we parent well from the bleachers. First of all, what I want to do is I want to talk about why I love sports. I mean, I'm somebody, if you've been around here very long, you know that's kind of been a big part of my life. My earliest memories were that, just playing every sport possible. My dad was a really good athlete. My grandfather was a professional baseball player, so that's sort of been my background. But sometimes in the church today, some of the things I'm going to say, maybe some people might really disagree with, because this is kind of contentious. In the church world today, team sports or club sports or travel sports are kind of seen as the enemy, because they take families really away from the church. And I don't exactly see it that way. We're going to talk about that. I think there's some great things about your kids being involved in sports. Number one, it's just fun. I think for kids, it's just a fun way to get out and interact, and so many great memories I've had from the past and you've had from the past, so we don't want our kids to miss out on that. Number two, I think athletics or any type of activity like that really develops a great deal of discipline. It teaches them responsibility. I remember one particular coach, both of our boys had him. He was pretty tough. He was a stickler, and they had to have all of their equipment. If they didn't have all of their equipment, from their belt to their socks to their cleats, they couldn't call their parents to come and bring it to them. And, they had to run because of that. And I remember our boys, they just would forget everything. But over the course of that first year with him, they developed some real discipline and knew how to take responsibility. So sports will do that. The other thing is just great friendships. It really teaches you how to grow. And when you talk to any athlete at any level, what athletes miss most when they're done playing sports is the friendships, the teammates. And so I think sports really teaches how to interact well with other folks. I think the other thing about sports that I love is sports really teaches us how to handle failure. Because if you're going to be involved in any type of athletic event, that you're going to lose. You're going to lose. You're going to strike out some. You're going to miss some shots. There's going to be some things that don't go your way. So it teaches how to handle failure. And that's really the way life is. There's so much failure that we have to learn to deal with, and people that are really successful in life really learn how to fail forward. They've learned how to deal with that, and so I think sports does that. I think sports teaches a great work ethic. I think whether you're in band or whether you're in high school football or whatever, it teaches a great work ethic. In fact, one of the things that I hear business leaders sometimes say is they look to hire athletes because athletes have really developed a great work ethic. So sports teach that. I think they teach us how to compete. Sometimes we can be so passive in life and sort of stand back, but if you're an athlete, you really learn how to get in there and grind and how to compete, and when things don't go well, to kind of put on more steam and really learn how to execute. So I think that's an important thing for sports. But now as we kind of move into this, here's what I really love. I think in life today, if we're not careful, we become very isolated. It is so easy just to move into our home and just kind of stay there. There's so much that we can be involved in, whether that's on our computers, on the internet, Netflix, whatever. We can just be very isolated. In fact, Amy and I talk about this a lot. It's very rare. We have children in our neighborhood, but it's very rare to see kids out riding their bikes in our neighborhood, or kids out playing ball. I just remember when I was growing up, man, kids were always out. There was always a wiffle ball game going, a football game going, or basketball game going. That was just my neighborhood. But you don't see that as much, so we get very, very isolated. But here's the problem with isolation is it's really hard to really live out the Great Commission and make a difference. And so here's what I love about sports. That's your mission field. Like for you guys as a parent, for a dad, I'm talking directly to you, Dave. Here's the thing. If your child is a competitive athlete, by a competitive athlete meaning they're going to play middle school sports, baseball, basketball, volleyball, soccer, whatever in our county. You know what? there's a chance that you will spend really the next 8 years of your life with a certain group of people. And I want you to see that as a dad, as that is your mission field, right? Jesus said this in Matthew chapter 28, starting in verse 18. And we know this passage, but I want to push into it just a little bit. Then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. He says, therefore, go and make disciples. That is an imperative. That is a command that he's making. He's not saying this is a suggestion that you should go and make disciples. This is a command. This is what we are to do. But we live such isolated lives many times that we don't have a lot of relationships. But one of the things I love about sports and one of the things I love about the stands is you'll spend a lot of your life with a group of people. And I want you to see that as your mission field. In fact, what Jesus is saying, we talk about this a ton here at New Vision, when he says, therefore, go and make disciples, really the way that can be translated is as you go, as a part of your everyday life, right? And so I think this gives you a tremendous opportunity. And then let me just read the rest of that passage. It says, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. One of the highlights, really, of Amy and I's time with our boys growing up is seeing their friends, teammates come to faith in Christ. I can remember just even in the baptistry that's just off to my left right now, just kids that we know that we have spent time with and seeing them come to faith in Christ and being baptized. It's a chance just to celebrate that. So I want you to see that team, those parents, as your mission field. And it says, in teaching them to obey everything I commanded, and surely I am with you, even to the very end of the age. The other thing I want to share with you in another passage, as you think about dad you think about really parenting from the stands, look what Paul says in 2 Corinthians 5:20. He says, we are therefore Christ ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. We implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. You and I, we're ambassadors for Jesus Christ. Sometimes I say it this way, we're a sales rep of Jesus. And so as you think about every time you go and sit in those stands and watch a practice or watch a game, you are representing the Lord. And there's a chance to really have a great impact, or there's a chance to really make some mistakes and ruin our witness that can be damaging. So I think about this. My wife, her small group that still meets, has been meeting for years, is made up just predominantly of moms that she has met through sports, through our kids' sports. The small group that I lead, many of those guys are just guys through the years that I have met through sports. I want to tell you this. We didn't do it right as parents in a lot of ways. We made mistakes. I don't want to try to be something that I'm not. But one of the things that I'm most proud of, and I would say this, is our greatest evangelistic opportunity has been in the stands, from the people that we have met along the way. And so I want you to understand, we're going to push into this a little bit more on how we can do that specifically. But every time you go and you park your car and you head over to the stands, I want you to keep this picture in your mind. I want you to understand what's really at stake, that this is your mission field, and maybe look at it another way. This is your flock that you are to shepherd or you are to pastor. The parents that are in those stands around you, the kids on that team, that can be your mission field. And you say, well, I get that it's maybe my mission field, but what do you mean by this is my flock that I could pastor? You're a pastor. I'm not a pastor. Well, that's not accurate. Look at 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. But you're a chosen people. This is talking to you, dads, as a believer. You're a chosen people, a royal priesthood. Now, think about that. God has called you a royal priesthood. And so one of the things that a priest, or one of the things that a pastor has to have a flock. And so I want you to see that those sitting around you in the stands, I want you to see that as your flock. Now, here's a couple things. Here's how you can do that. I think it's important, if you want to do that well, show real interest in other kids on the team. Parents love that, right? So many guys that I have seen in the past, that they show up and they are just laser focused on their own kid and their own performance, their own son or their own daughter, and how they're performing, their success, and that's what it's all about. But listen, when you show real interest, when you brag on another kid's success, right, that opens you up to that parent in an amazing way and gives you a tremendous opportunity to have impact for them. Guard your testimony, right, with the things that you say. We're going to look at this a couple times. Don't ever yell at the umpires or the officials. That's just, I'm not saying that I haven't done that, because I've done that. I regret that. There's always going to be, watch this, guys, and Dad, we get a chance to talk about some really specific things. After the game, after the game, whether it's your daughter's volleyball or your son's soccer game, after the game, there'll be a group of parents and they're going to complain about the coach because the coach didn't play their kid enough or do this, do that, and they're going to try to draw you into that. I promise you it will happen if it hasn't already happened. But take the high road there. Say, you know what? I appreciate that they're giving their time to our children, and you know, coaching a group of kids is really difficult, and try to focus on the positives with that coach, and you kind of spin that conversation a little bit, and it maintains your testimony. It gives you a great opportunity to have minister to them. Here's another thing. Again, treat your kids' team and the parents in the stand as your flock, as a group of people that you're pastoring or you're ministering to. So when a kid gets injured, and that will happen. That will happen. When they get injured, I mean, look at that as an opportunity to send a text, to check on them, to follow up with them. When a kid after a game has something that's really disappoints them, when they have like a major failure in the game, another child, just being able to go over and put your arm around them and tell them how proud you are of them and encourage them, that's a great opportunity to minister. We've even had one of our son's teammates that passed away during a season. So there was a death, and just a great opportunity to kind of rally all the parents and minister to that family. And that's the way you should think about that, or I would encourage you to think about that. And then, you know, another thing to do, just look for opportunities to invest and invite, just to worship. Now, one of the things that we do here at New Vision is we do a Thursday night service. You guys know that. And we've maybe taken some criticism for that. So many people's schedule is that, you know, they're traveling on the weekend. Maybe they've got a tournament in Chattanooga, or they're away visiting parents, or whatever. We have an opportunity on Thursday night to worship and gather. Just a great chance to invest and invite some of these people that you're spending time with. You never will know the difference that can make in their life. And so here's what I want to do for the next couple minutes, just very quickly. I want to share 10 really quick thoughts from the stands. These are 10 things that I think are just non-negotiables for you if you're a parent and you're parenting from the stands. Dads, how can we do this well? And Dad, how can I really grow in this? And how can I be a better dad from the stands? Number one, here's the first thing I would say. Don't tie your identity to your kid's performance. Does that make sense? I see so many dads do that, right? If their kid has a great game, then you just feel really good about yourself. It's like a super dad. If they have a lousy game, then you feel like a failure. Don't tie your kid's performance to you. Your identity really comes from who Christ says you are. Number two, make sure that your children, whether your daughter or your son, make sure that they know what matters most to you. Many times when it comes to athletics, and again, athletics can be a great thing, and they can be a really difficult thing, because sometimes they take a bigger priority in our life. You know what? If that's all you talk about is the sport that they're in and their team and what they're doing, that is saying to them, this is what you value most. If that's what you spend the most time doing, if that's what you give the best of yourself to, that's really saying to them that this is what is most important to you. You know what? You spend every weekend at the ball field, and worship isn't a regular rhythm of your life. That screams to them what is really important to you. Make sure, as a father, make sure they know that Christ is preeminent to you. Make sure that they know that worshiping the Lord is important for you and for your family. Make sure you know that they are important just as a human being, not based on their performance. I think it's an important thing. Number three, here's what I would say. Never coach your kids from the stands. We all want to do it. Every dad wants to do it. Can I just tell you, make a commitment here at Dad U to say, I'm not going to do that. You know, I'm a baseball guy. I grew up playing baseball my entire life, from my earliest memories and all the way from, through high school and into college. And I heard so many dads do this. Their kids out on the mound pitching, and they yell out at their kids, hey, throw strikes. That's such a stupid thing to say. I don't want to be offensive to you, and I've said it. It doesn't. The kid's trying to throw strikes. I mean, you're not helping him by doing that. Or maybe your son or daughter is shooting a free throw, and you're giving them tips as they're going to the line. Don't coach from the stands. Number one, it doesn't help your child. In fact, it will frustrate them, and I think it decreases their performance. Number two, it shows a lack of respect for their coach, who is giving his or her time to pour into them. And in fact, fact, you may even be saying something contrary to what their coach is saying. And so you're teaching them to really disobey or disrespect the authority that's over them. You know, I think back and I can remember some dads at little rec basketball games, and every time their kid would get the ball, they'd just yell, shoot, shoot, shoot. Well, you know what? That's probably not what the coach is teaching them. He's probably teaching them, or she's probably teaching them to pass the ball, and they've got an offense that they're set up. They've got some things that they're really trying to get accomplished. And so here it is, bottom line. Don't coach your kids from the stands. It's a bad look, and it's not helpful for your kids. Encourage them, right? Encourage them from the stands. That's a great thing to do. Let me say this, number 4, and it kind of goes along with this. I think it's important to be present before and after, but be invisible during the game. What do I mean by that? Be present before. Make sure they know you're there. It's really important. You'll see that, especially you. I can remember coming from the office and just getting there kind of just before a game started, and one of my boys kind of looking out of the dugout just to see if you're there. That matters to them. It matters to them that you're there. They want to know that you're there. I can even remember a guy I was meeting with in counseling years ago, and he said, you know what, I still remember times when my dad would leave my games early, and because he was frustrated, and I can still remember as a little boy watching his car drive away. It's a terrible thing. So I'd say be present before and after. After the game, be over there, be the first to encourage your kid, but during the game, be invisible. In other words, get a vantage point, a perspective where you can watch the game and enjoy watching the game or whatever, the band competition or whatever. But I don't think you need to be in their line of sight. I think about this in our town here in Murfreesboro. The head football coach at Middle Tennessee State University, Rick Stockstill, he's a really cool guy. And I can remember his son came through middle school and high school with one of my boys, and I always watched him at the games. He stayed way out in the outfield. He never was in the line of sight with his son. After the game, he'd go over and talk to him, and he was there before the game, but he was really invisible during the game. And I saw that. I thought, that's really helpful, and I think that's a great thing for you. You're there, and you're nervous, and you're right in their line of sight. They see that, and it's not helpful to them. So be present before and after, but invisible during the game. Number 5, make car rides home full of praise. What we're prone to do is on the car ride home, focus on all the negatives, right? On the things that we did not do well. And I can see myself doing that sometimes as a dad, thinking about the things that needed to be corrected. Instead of saying this, I want to make a commitment that I want to make our car ride home from every game full of praise. I'm so proud of you. I love you. I just love that you're out there with your teammates. You did a great, just encourage them, building them up. Look for something that they did. How you hustled today was just super cool. It was important to do that. Now, here's the thing. Tomorrow is for teaching or correcting. What do I mean by that? There are some things, if you see some things that your child maybe isn't doing well, it's always good to maybe the next day to get out in the yard and work on that and work on correcting something. I can remember something with my dad, and my dad was a very, very good baseball player, great college baseball player, and my dad did this well. My dad, when I was in high school and when I was in college, and he would come to the games, and he wouldn't, after the game, he wouldn't get on me about what I didn't do well, but, he might say the next day, he'd say, you want to go out and hit some? In other words, what he was saying is he wanted to go out and he'd throw some balls, and it was there. Tomorrow was for teaching. That's a chance that he had to correct that. And so I think it's an important thing. Number 6, here's what I would say. Don't play the blame game. After the game, especially after a loss, winning makes everything better. Losing makes everything worse. And so when you get in the car with your kids after a loss, the first thing that they will many times want to do is blame someone. Well, our coach, I can't believe that he played this person and didn't play that person, or I can't believe he called this play and didn't call that play, or whatever, or the referees or the officials or the umpires, they did that. And so we always want to blame someone else, but I think it doesn't help us to grow as an individual. One of the things that we need to do with our kids, especially with boys and girls, they have to learn how to accept responsibility. Hey, let's talk talk about what we all can do better. You know what? There's always going to be bad calls in life. There's always going to be people who don't make decisions the way we want to. That's just a part of life. But let's just focus on what we can do better. It's an important thing. So don't jump in and play the blame game, because if you do that in every area of their life going forward, they'll never learn to take responsibility for things, and that's an important thing. Number 7, lesson from the stands. This is a big one, and we've talked about this before, but never argue with an umpire. It is just, again, or with a referee or with an official, with anybody in authority. Number 1, it's a bad witness. It doesn't look good for you spiritually. And again, what is the big win here? The big win is understanding the stands. That is a chance for me to influence this group of people for Christ and make an impact in all eternity. Listen, the big thing isn't that my kid's a part of a team and wins a championship. The big thing is that maybe through this time that we have together as parents and as teammates, somebody comes to faith in Christ. That's the big picture. That's what's ahead of you. And you have to think with the end in mind. And so anything that I do that is contrary to that, I really have to think about that, and I have to really get rid of that. So don't argue with an umpire. It's a bad witness. And secondly, it really devalues authority, right? And that can have severe ramifications in every area of life. Number 8, here's what I would say. Don't make a scholarship the goal, right? And I see so many parents do that and think about that. You know what? Everybody... this is a hard thing to hear as a dad, and it was certainly true for me. Everybody thinks their kid is just a little bit better than what they are, and that's just a part of being a dad. We have a hard time being subjective. That's not wrong. That's just reality. And so everybody wants to make scholarship the goal. And very early on, if you make getting a scholarship for whatever sport or activity they're in the goal, it robs the game of the fun, right? And this is meant, sports or activities, that's recreation, to recreate us. It's a chance to really have fun, right? And if you make a scholarship the goal, you know what? It just robs it of its primary goal. So that's such an important, puts way too much pressure on the kids. Here's the thing. If your kid is good enough to get a scholarship, their ability is going to shine through. You don't have to force that. You don't have to manipulate that. You don't have to always kind of keep that in front of them, and you'll really ruin it for them. Number 9, don't fall prey into the performance track. Now, and let me just unpack this, and I'm almost done. I want to unpack this a little bit. I was meeting just about a month ago with 2 athletes, 2 college athletes that were very successful in their college career. One of them was a freshman All-American in their particular sport. And you think about that, that's a big deal. These were very, very effective college athletes. But as I was talking to them and some counseling, what really was the story of their life is all their life they had been on the performance track. If they performed well on the field, they got praise from their coaches, from their teammates, from their parents. They only got affirmation when they performed well. And so why they were in my office is they were having a hard time in their relationship with God. That's what they thought, or that's how they thought God viewed them. And they were on this performance track spiritually. Like when they had a good day, then God loved them more. And they were just on this guilt and shame sort of journey. It's kind of like they were on this spiritual treadmill of trying to always perform. And they didn't understand the grace of God, right? And God's unconditional love for them. It was such a hard thing for them to understand. And so I would say this, after a game, it's a great opportunity many times to share a great gospel lesson. You know what? You didn't score that game-winning goal. You didn't get this hit. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. Well, that doesn't mean that God doesn't love you. God is the one who has performed perfectly for us, and His grace and His mercy in our lives, His unconditional love for us, that gives us such peace and such joy. It's a great opportunity to really have those gospel conversations. And then number 10, the final thing I would say, and it sort of sums up everything we say, when we think about parenting from the stands, don't be that dad. And you all know that dad. Man, I can think back on dads in my life as a kid growing up that would come down to the dugout or even come into the locker room and just yell and scream and truly just make a fool of themselves, who in the stands just were utterly foolish in what they said and how they responded, yelling and screaming at coaches or umpires or their own kid. Man, I can remember, I can see them visually in my mind, dads yelling at their kids during a game and a kid yelling back at his dad, and here they are right at the fence at each other. I mean, everybody there is watching. You know what I would say? Don't be the dad. Don't be that dad. Understand there's a bigger picture here. I mean, this is a great opportunity for gospel influence. It's just a great opportunity to love and encourage your kid, and don't make this about you. And I tell you what, I think what you'll see is you'll be able to enjoy this season of your life with your kid, not feeling so much pressure. There'll be some great highs, there'll be some lows that God will teach and grow them through. And you'll pick up some relationships along the way from the stands with other folks that you'll have for the rest of your life. And you could see some of these people come into the kingdom. You'll spend eternity with them because of what took place in the stands. So I hope this has been a helpful talk. I really appreciate you guys hanging in here with us. I know it's a little bit different, but I was super excited to have this conversation. And let's be better dads and granddads from the stands.